So guys, since I couldn't find the audiobook, I will just have to read it to you. I think we'll do one chapter a day. And then between the Achieve 3000, Read and Journal, Exit Tickets, that should keep you busy and not bored, but also not so busy that you fall behind. Okay, so I'm on chapter 7, page 74 in the book. And it's called If I Needed Someone. And when you get to the exit ticket, please go ahead, click on the song, just so you can hear it, okay? There was a funny freedom in having been to someone's house. I could now picture where George spent his time, and I was no longer locked into talking to him only at school. I hadn't felt this freedom since kindergarten, when Carson and I started staying overnight at each other's houses on a regular basis. The day after my visit, I had 2 reasons to call George. To promise I would bring his dad's album back, and this other little thing that had been bugging me. The phone book wasn't new enough to include his family, but my ma was off somewhere, so even though it could show up on the phone bill and I'd have some explaining to do, I called information for a listing. Niagara Falls, James Haddonfield, Iron Loop. Haddonfield residence, his ma said, answering the phone. Is George home? I asked. I am sorry, who is calling, please? She asked, suddenly not her cheery self. I had already done something wrong. Maybe he wasn't allowed to have phone calls? Hi, Mrs. Haddonfield, it's Louis Blake from the reservation. Oh, hello, Louis, she said, switching back to her perky self. Sometimes America is confusing in its rules. You're telling me, I thought. In Deutschland, when we call someone, we say Guten Tag, or if we know the person very well, we may just say Tag before asking the party what we want. It's like good day or day, I suppose. It does not translate so well. Since you and I know each other, we might just say Tag. Okay, sorry, Mrs. Haddonfield. I've only ever called other people from the reservation before where you just asked for someone. There was silence on the line as we both paused, like we were waiting for some UN cultural translator. But since she was my elder, I eventually said, Tag, Mrs. Haddonfield, is George home? Tag, Louis. So nice to hear from you. Wait one moment while I retrieve George. Hey, George says, picking up the line. I could picture him sitting at the kitchen counter on one of the stools near where the phone hung. Miss me already? He laughed. Funny. Listen, please. Please tell your dad that I definitely promise I'll bring his album to school as soon as we come back. I promise. What are you talking about? He lent me Band on the Run, and I said, My dad lent you an album? He never lends out records. You're making that up. Yeah, I'm making that up. Why would I do that? Look, just tell him I promise to take good care of it. Anyway, you were going to tell me what you'd forgotten to mention about him and Indians? I keep forgetting to ask, remember? Oh, yeah, he said, and then dropped his voice. But it's not the kind of thing you can say on the phone, if you know what I mean. Oh, come on, I have no idea what you mean, I said, picturing all sorts of bad things I immediately pushed out of my head. What kind of things could you not say on the phone? Well, if you want to know, we'll have to get together over the break sometime. Or you could tell me in school, since you're being so weird over the phone. Well, not really a school thing either. My ma doesn't generally take me places I don't absolutely have to go, I said. She's funny that way. I hated making her sound deranged, but it felt easier than the truth. Do you know what the truth is? They don't have a car, so Mom cannot take them anywhere. I'm babysitting a couple of houses down on New Year's Eve. If you can get a ride that night, my dad will give you a ride home in the morning. After the couple who I'm sitting for comes home, we can walk back to my place and you can stay overnight. I don't think, I started. You've got a week to come up with a ride. It'll be totally worth it. The place I'm babysitting has an interesting library, he said, in a way that was meant to convey something other than the one with the Dewey Decimal System, like a normal library. Look, I've got to go load the ads for my paper route tomorrow. Have a great Christmas if I don't talk to you before then, and hope to see you New Year's Eve. And with that, he was gone. Louis, my ma yelled later that evening, get down here, Carson's here. I went downstairs. Carson stood near the kerosene heater, rubbing his hands, his boots dripping snow into the old rug. "We just got our Christmas tree," he said. "It's stuffed into the back seat, and my ma wanted to know if you want to come over and help us with it. We're shopping first. She said my dad dropped the old box of ornaments, so we have to get some more." There was no forewarning with Carson, no greetings, no talk, just the way I knew it to be, and there was some comfort in knowing the rules. "Sure," I said, since it looked like this was going to be my only chance to get to a store for Christmas shopping. "I'll grab a change of clothes. You can stay the night," he added. "Go ahead if you want," my ma said, reading the newspaper. I ran up and stuffed clothes into a grocery bag. Albert watched me. I could hear him in my head in that telepathy you get when you shared a room for years. "You're gonna be sorry," he beamed into my brain. "All you're doing is gathering more things that kid's gonna hold over your head. I don't want to hear it when you come home in some kind of mess either." "You won't," I said aloud. "Just wait and see," he said, shaking his head and lighting a cigarette as I left. "What took so long? Let's go," Carson said, grabbing my bag, my coat already in my hands. He flew out the door as I collected my toothbrush and deodorant. By the time I got outside, their car was near the mailbox, blinding me with its headlights as I navigated our snow ruts. "Get in front," he yelled from inside, which seemed weird. "And hurry up." "What's your prob—" I started when I opened the door. Carson sat alone in the driver's seat, glowing in the dash lights. The overhead dome socket hung down empty, the little bulb on the seat bench. "Get in, you're letting the heat out." "But you want your coat back or not?" "You're not getting it unless you climb in here right now," he said. I could see it scrunched up against the driver's side door. "All right, give me it," I said as I climbed in and shut the door. "You'll be fine," he said, backing out and then flying down Dog Street. "It'd be warmer if you hadn't left the damn door open. Geez, what took you so long? I was worried your ma was going to ask for a ride to bingo, then she'd know that I borrowed this car." "Borrowed?" "Well, my ma and dad went up to Grand River for the weekend. They're selling beadwork at that big holiday craft show they have in the Friendship Center. So it's just me and the brother and sister for a few days. Sheila and Derek are upstairs in his room trying out some new water pipe, so I took the keys and here we are." "But I really do need to go to the store. It's only a few days to Christmas." "Don't get your panties in a bunch, Gloomis. We'll go and get Sheila. Maybe she won't be all that baked, and she'll take us. But first," he said, flying down the road, "the big lot below the school is all iced and snowed over. Perfect for dog nuts." Not donuts, dog nuts. In a couple of minutes we were down through the elementary school driveway and into the lot. He hit the gas and turned the wheel sharply. Then he hit the brakes, so we slid and cranked the wheel all the way opposite, pounding the gas again. As I flew across the bench seat with each turn, crashing into the armrest and then the door, I couldn't stop laughing. Sometimes in my force field at school, I forgot about the freedoms of my little world on the res, where we might lift the car and test the limits of our skills without worrying about being arrested. So lifting the car clearly means they, borrow the car, okay? So they steal a car and then they just do donuts on the ice. And, of course, neither one has a driver's license. As we shrieked in terror and excitement, barely missing the fence a few times, I thought of all the similar things I'd spent my life doing that wouldn't have happened anywhere else. We'd strapped sleds to the back of cars and flown through fields, dodging creeks and fences and trees, and sometimes simply wiping out. We'd packed cars so heavy, riding in open trunks and on roofs, that their chassis almost dragged. As we got older and stayed out later, we watched friends detonate homemade bombs from afar. They would work on them for weeks and announce the bomb party a few days in advance, and when the day came, we'd hang out, eat, drink, play ball, all being careful not to wander too close in case the detonator wasn't exactly the most sophisticated. Between Carson's crazy older cousins and mine, it was like living in the same neighborhood as a roadrunner and Wile E. Coyote. A lot of the things I'd grown up doing might not be considered the safest way of life, but there was no beating the rush in your blood when you were a little less controlled than the rest of the country. Only in hanging out with George in his quieter, regular kid world did I start to appreciate the weird and rare things I'd taken for granted my whole life. Carson didn't seem to have a conceptual grasp of the basic donut shape. We were making big figure eights in the parking lot, more like crawlers. The more crawlers we did, the closer we got to the lampposts, and that's when I realized those lights were on, which meant that anyone driving by would have had a clear view of our activities. Next week, it was quite possible someone might ask Sophronia Mastic, Carson's mom, why she was doing donuts in the school parking lot on Friday night. Finally, after he almost took us out with a light pole, shaving by with just inches to spare, we headed over to his house, and Carson gave me my winter coat back. "Kick your boots off, they're covered in snow," he said as we walked in. "Well, you didn't at my house." "I've seen the rugs at your house. Better just to keep the boots on there." "Funny. Well, I guess we aren't really getting decorations after all," I said. Their tree was massive, the star on top pressing into their new drop ceiling. I didn't think there was room for even one more ornament, let alone a whole new box of them. Yeah, that was bull to get you out of the house and to make sure your ma didn't think there might be room to give her a ride anywhere. I hated that even people my age on the res knew our business. Of course, when you're patching rides together, even to get to the grocery store, it's not a huge secret. As Carson ran up the stairs, I looked at the ocean of presents flooding from under their tree, spilling out into the middle of the living room. One package addressed to Carson was clearly a guitar-shaped box, and it was sitting on another large box with his name on the tag. "Well, Sheila says she's in no shape to drive," Carson said when he came back down. He saw me looking at his presents. "Yeah," he added, perking up, "you got that right. That there is an Epiphone casino guitar and an orange amp, with yours truly on the tag." What does that mean, an amp? I've always wondered. "Well, that piece of crap we got from Bug Jemison was an acoustic guitar, remember? My dad said if I got good enough on it, he'd consider getting me an electric, which was what I really wanted when he brought that thing home. And an electric has to go through an amp that has a speaker in it. You know those concert pictures where you see the big wall of boxes behind the guitar player? Those are the amps. I bet you thought they were just decorations." I knew they were connected to the sound, but he was right. I didn't know how things functioned. "You're telling me that in 5 months you're good enough that you can play songs?" I asked. "I mean, like, real songs?" "None of that. Michael Row the Boat Ashore stuff." "Well, like you could play Michael Row the Boat Ashore," he said. "Ashore," I added. "Whatever. I can play one of your favorite songs." He ran into his room, bringing down the guitar I'd seen in August. He sat in the chair, put his left hand on the frets, and did a few moves, pinching the guitar necks up and down a few different places with his full index finger. "Smoke on the Water is not my favorite song," I said, laughing. Still, even though the movements he was making were basic, I couldn't have made them if my life depended on them. "So I guess the Bug didn't pay up his wine bill with your dad?" "Nope. Just kidding on the song, though. That's a basic one they teach you to get excited, because any moron can play it almost instantly. This one, though, is one of your favorites, and I'm so good, you will believe in Yesterday." He then played the Beatles' Yesterday, perfectly, as if he'd been doing it his whole life. The only thing missing was a string quartet. And then he started singing it perfectly, too, slight fake British accent and all. "Can you show me how to do this?" I said. "Just like that," he said, and then played it through again, his fingers moving so fast I couldn't follow what he was doing. His hands were like small animals, jumping from string to string. Then he stopped and tossed the guitar on the couch, where it made almost a grunt, its strings vibrating. I really wanted to pick it up, but I knew that I hadn't seen any of its positions well enough to recreate them.